And now I'm gonna drink this schlapple juice. Casually, casually. So, being graceful with the discourse, what does that mean? Being mindful of people's respective attention spans and levels of intelligence, because there's a particular type of subjective learning curve, right? And not to get too ahead of myself, it's like it's good to take notes, right? It's good to take notes. Now I gotta rewind. What was I gonna say? Type of shit. What was I gonna say? Type of shit. So I got the schlapple juice, right? You get the schlapple juice, and you drink this slapple juice casually. I'm drinking this slapple juice casually. I gotta start this video over. I'm gonna start this video. No, I don't need to start this. Whatever. So so I'm just saying it casually. What am I saying casually? That I'm gracefully direct with the intelligence. What does that mean? I'm resurfacing and digging up things that you missed that are obvious, such as what? Things that you missed that are obvious. Unconscious dots, unconscious energies, dots and energies, things that are making us feel quote unquote comfortable or uncomfortable, but we don't know why they're making us feel comfortable or uncomfortable. So, what's the intuitive definition of the unconscious? Things that could be making us behave and act in such a way, but we don't know why we're behaving and acting in such a way because it's in the body, it's in the paint of the past, the spirit holding the past life shit, and then the earth body holding the traumas since you were 5 years old or 0 years old or whatever, right? So, what is the unconscious? It's it's pretty much it's just behaviors that we're exhibiting, but we don't know why we're exhibiting them. It's energies that we're feeling, but we don't know why we're feeling those energies. It's comfortableness or uncomfortableness that we're feeling, but we don't know why we're feeling. That's the unconsciousness. So, for example, what could be an unconscious energy that could be making us feel quote unquote disgruntled because we have a lack of intellectual processing because of just the surface level rigid energetic mental karma that we're rigid, right? So one example of unconscious energies is we don't know why we're feeling hate, or maybe we do, or we don't know why we're feeling like we're gonna do this malevolent plot agenda to kill someone. Just for a casual example, we don't know why we're doing this agenda, right? Or we kind of do because there's an unconscious energy affiliation. There's something within us that's being programmed to do that, and then there's a different archonic influence. So there's so within what I'm saying, I'm graceful with the direct intelligence. What does that mean? I'm saying things that you forgot that are true, but they are true because you've stuffed them in the unconscious realm. What is the unconscious realm? The things that you have yet to unpack in your physical body in this life and your soul body in this life. The soul body in this life is like the pre-archons, the archons being fucking just kind of like quote unquote esoterically kind of like opposed to the original soul, and now they're going their own way, and now they're trying to control material affairs, and now they're influencing the individual humans on an unconscious and conscious level to do what certain planetary archons want you to do what they want you to do, right? Because the gods have their own war, right? Just on some basic shit, right? The archons have their own war, right? Or they have their own opposition. There's seasons where they get along, there's seasons where they hate each other type of shit. Like we know this basic shit. We know this 1965 fucking Berkeley, basic fucking metaphorical esoteric shit or not. And it's funny because in high school I actually took a field trip to Berkeley, and that was really fun. So one example of the unconsciousness that is controlling our life is certain archon we're under contract. Our physical incarnation, we're under contract, little do we know, to all of the archons, but to some percentage, one primary over another. And if we're primarily under contract, for example, we're under contract to all the archons because it's their different portion shared allotments. But then we're primarily under one because that's what we subscribed, and that on a soul level to physical level, that's what we sold out to, right? So obviously, a lot of people in the Earth game, or not everybody, it's just like surface level, like we're all like kind of applying just to like be like Saturn, Venus, or Mercury type of shit because that's surface level shit, right? We're all in that game, right? And obviously everything is case by case by case, right? So obviously, that Saturn shit, it's like the shit is happening because it's his decree, right? It's his decree type of shit. Like there's a standard transaction going on, right? So within that, the unconsciousness could receive energies and agendas and programs, belief systems from the archons, particularly the archons, the same thing, two sides of the same coin, good and bad, archons, planets, same fucking shit. So we're receiving their agendas and motives, and those agendas and motives are living through the human beings, and we're also receiving their energies, and it's a beautiful example because like, even couples, when you're in a relationship, an intimate relationship, like, husband and wife and shit, they're exchanging their energies where they're kind of fusing their belief systems and their energies, and now they're kind of conforming to each other in such a way where it's like, they're kind of like, not necessarily forcing each other, but on an intuitive, feministic, energetic level, they're forcing each other to kind of like feel what they feel and believe what they believe. And that's not necessarily entirely true to a different, bigger picture. They're just doing their own little experiment, right? So within that, they're feeding off of each other, and they're kind of like fusing their own little experimental program, and they're kind of like forcing themselves to like just to kind of like conform to their own belief systems, right? And as they're doing that, yeah, I always get like when someone pops up on the live, I'm just like, whoa. But like what? So I'm holding on to the example right now. The example that I'm talking about right now is like the example that I'm going to explain right now is unconscious hate. What is unconscious hatred? Our individual physical life is under spiritual contract to all the planets. Simultaneously, it has a primary planet that it's up under. So since it has a primary planet that it's up under, and it forgets the bigger picture council, it's subservient to that single planetary archon, and that single planetary archon could be malevolent. So it's receiving and feeding those malevolent instructions, feelings, energies, programs, and belief systems, and it's totally controlled whether it remembers it or not, and it probably does remember it, and it's just playing its face card, right? It's just playing its like it just has its own poker face, right? Very advanced poker face, which I saw and I didn't tell anybody a long time ago. I just knew it, intuitive sensing type of shit. So like, you know, God could see through the poker faces, But anyways, so I'm just gonna carry the graceful intelligence here right now. And that example is unconscious hate. What do I mean by unconscious hatred? Certain planets have a bias against quote unquote a different planetary archon that could, and I'm so graceful with the intelligence. Some one planetary arc, all the archons, like in their own roundtable shit, obviously they have their own beliefs about each other, right? And obviously there could be like quote unquote on a natural graceful touch, obviously there could be some hints of enviousness just for whatever standard reason, right? But that enviousness could be caused by different reasons, right? It's because someone could be too arrogant, right? And if someone's too arrogant, then that planet could get side-eyed, right? Because he's too arrogant, right? So because obviously, like, if we want to like neutrally approach the Bhagavad Gita, it's like, that planetary being that we're coming to understand as Sri Bhagavan Krishna. And obviously all of the planetary argons have like thousand names plus, right? And they have their own, kind of whatever, their own like shuffling of identities throughout time, right? So there's a shuffling of identities throughout time. So obviously, like, within that particular, just focusing on, like, I guess, quote unquote Vishnu, right, or whatever, like, he could get side-eyed by other planets because he's claiming to be all of this shit that's not necessarily could be true, but what if it is, but what if it isn't? So that for some reason there's a big halt investigation of like, whoa, like, read the fucking Gita. There's some heavy claims that are being made. It's kind of preposterous, right? And I read the Gita in 2017, so it's like, but like within all of that shit, it's like just kind of reading it for the first time and then processing it with other shit, then you come back and be like, wow, like, is that really true? Just on a basic non-biased level, we're gonna have to ask, like my intelligence asks, and without the bias, without the religious bias, right? I'm just like, is that really fucking true, right? And I see what it is for what it is, right? So but obviously, like, the unconscious hatred is directed towards that particular planetary being, and that planetary being, because it claimed for what it is to claim, all of the different quote unquote energetic attacks could be directed towards quote unquote Vishnu, right? And I'm not going to give you what planet Vishnu is, but I mentioned it in a past transmission. And within that, because Vishnu, he's saying some crazy shit in the Gita. So if he's saying all this crazy shit, different planetary beings, they're gonna side eye him, right? And there's gonna be another layer and another moment and another movie scene of the intricate planetary warfare of the gods being at war, right? So the gods are at war, and sometimes they're at peace. It just depends on the seasons. So it's like the unconscious hate. Why do we have unconscious hate? Why do some planets have hatred? And then seeing how the individuals under the planet receive the hatred from the planet, right? So what am I talking about? Let's go. Let me give the example right now. One second. Okay, one second. One second. I'm looking up something from the. So I'm gonna read something from Google. So here's how unconscious hate could get accumulated. So this text, the Bhagavad Gita, it was physically expressed 6,000 years ago, but in other Vedic perspectives, it was given like billions of years ago in a different dimension from, like, however Surya and his fucking council of beings within his relationship to all the other planets and shit like that. And obviously in the underground, like, any confusion that you have, it in some other quote unquote time and space and dimension, it is answered, right? It's up to us to want to, like, have a balanced alignment to follow up on a certain type of investigation and cooperation to obviously unlock some real shit, or not, or it will be hidden in just the fucking esoteric algorithm of shit, right? Original open source. So here's how other planets could accumulate hate, because a different planet could claim some shit, and since that different planet is claiming all of this shit, it's gonna get side-eyed. So look, at Google says Vishnu in the Bhagavad Gita says he is the supreme enjoyer and the only Lord of all sacrifices. To establish that he is the ultimate recipient of all worship, penances, and sacrifices, not the individual worshippers or demigods, and that only by realizing this truth could one avoid falling into material existence. So that was highlighted in blue. This concept emphasizes that all the benefits and energy of the universe are ultimately sourced from and directed to Krishna, the Supreme Lord. So pause right there. After reading that, that's going to get side-eyed on an unbiased level, right? So on an unbiased level, that's going to get side-eyed, and it's going to be put to the test. And it's not, and putting yourself in a position of no bias we don't necessarily have to say that that's false or true, right? We could just, with no bias, we could go into a mood of investigation, right? Like, and we don't necessarily have to harbor hate. It's all about your professional grace intelligence, right? It's all about how you're using grace intelligence or whatever, original open source, whatever. So within all of that stuff, it's like we could have a mature investigation with that, and upon that mature investigation will we like have a well-rounded investigation, and whether we have a well-rounded investigation or not, can we have a proper conclusion of that? Because if you read the Gita, there's some, it's just wild claims, right? Like it's just wild claims of I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all this, I'm all that, all this shit. Like that's like in a different chapter in the Gita, he says, I'm the cause of all the causes. So that might be true, but it might not. But it might be because if you're the cause of all causes, now we could see like how the hatred is coming to become to begin with, right? Because you're claiming all of this shit, other fucking planetary offsprings, however they came to be to conception, they're gonna side eye that shit because you're saying you're the ultimate shit, right? So in a different chapter, Krishna says, "I'm the cause of all causes." Let's see if and I just read chapter 9, verse 24. Now I'm gonna Google Krishna says, and mind you, I'm coming on a balanced investigation, no biased, right? I'm not saying this is the truth or this is not the truth. I'm just a researcher, right? So Krishna is saying I'm the cause of all causes. So that shit is gonna get side-eyed without biases, right? I'm the cause of all causes. And that's gonna get put to the test, right? The esoteric warfare, like what does that really mean, right? I'm the cause of all causes. Based on whatever he originated, the whole council is reacting from a certain source reaction, spark reaction. And since the whole council of, the quote unquote latter planetary beings, they're observing and reacting from some type of source that's causing something, and from us observing that cause, we're having our own micro cause that's then creating more causes and effects on a different intuitive multiplication level, right? And obviously the private video I did this morning could intermesh cleanly with what I'm just saying, right? Things start from one, and then somehow they multiply to two, and then they somehow multiply to like some type of quote unquote infinity, right? And I don't I don't necessarily mean to like, just I don't necessarily mean to like reflect on the Geters. So this is chapter 5, verse 1. And obviously it's really fun to read the Sanskrit on a different level, right? So he says that across, I'm sure he says that I'm sure there's chapter 5 references, I'm sure there's chapter 2 references, I'm sure there's chapter 7 references. So you could jump around it, right? But the whole point of me saying this is like there's a if it's not necessarily that is if it were true. I'm just saying like I'm just trying to like kind of account for the paradox of life and the unconscious hate of life due to the fact that if someone were to say that in a different level, I'm the enjoyer of all things, some other being is going to harbor hate because that doesn't necessarily make sense. They're going to be like, why can't I enjoy shit? And you can enjoy shit, right? But I think in context, I think he's talking about it in an at an internal level, right? So it's all about the context because like obviously the human and just the individual will side eye that shit. Like I'm just breaking down that fucking segment in the Gita. He's saying only I'm the enjoyer of all things, right? That doesn't necessarily like, that doesn't necessarily like it doesn't sound right, right? And it's funny because 99% of of the Vaishnavites, there's a lack of precise particular critical thinking, right? It's just insane how like there's a certain provocation, there's a certain source spark where the intelligence comes from, and somehow God regulates who gets God's intelligence and challenges, and others don't, right? They don't get God's intelligence and challenge. They get surface level challenges and they get surface level intelligence, and who the fuck knows what happens after this life, and somehow Mercury knows and he doesn't know, right? Because he's still in the surface level material world updating himself on the knowledge, yet he has some type of grasp with the higher octave of Mercury, whatever planet that is, and he's receiving that higher octave intelligence to fucking keep grounding himself, mutable earth, Virgo, Noah's Ark type of shit, to fucking see the planet Earth, Noah's Ark, Virgo shit, Mercury shit, feminine Mercury, and now he's using the higher octave. Obviously, they're saying the astrology is saying the higher octave of Mercury is Uranus, right? That's what Mercury is saying himself. He coded the surface level astrology. So within that, Mercury is using Uranus's shit to fucking understand, quote unquote, the knowledge of everything, right? According to that surface level code. So it's like everything is known. Like, so it's like if you want to like whatever agenda or whatever manipulation tactic you have, all the planets are gonna know about it on their dimension, and they're gonna fucking respond accordingly, and they're gonna have their own fucking weird, fucked up, esoteric law system and justice system of how, quote unquote, energetically everything's perfect, but the human at the surface level, it's quote unquote not, because we're lacking, and we're fighting and we're cheating and manipulating, right? And we're thinking that's not getting accounted for, but how it got accounted for way differently in the Saturn guard, because so there was a distorted exchange, right? So now the key thing about the new age is that could the fucking rules actually be more balanced rather than distorted? So that's the thing we got to ask ourselves, because if we don't know that there's a law system that's less distorted and more balanced, then we won't synchronize with that, and we'll be lost away from that, right? And if we're not in the balanced justice and law system, then that's just some fuck shit intelligence, right? It's just a fuck shit quality of lifestyle. And if people want that, go ahead, you're that's what you're energetically voting for, type of shit, right? So it's like we don't have to do anything. We could follow up on the investigation, is within the shifting of ages and the transition of ages, is will there be a particular knowing and highlighting transition of a distorted law system to a balanced law system? Because wouldn't you fucking want that for all the countries around the world doing their fucking weird ass protest in South America and Europe and all that shit, and they've been doing that shit in 2020, doing all of this shit? Wouldn't you want to have some type of balanced intellectual investigation of like, why is that happening? Why is there a fucked up law and justice system happening? And could there be a balanced justice and law system happening? And if there could be a balanced and justice law system happening, how could we anchor that? And how could we make that balance and justice law system actually a thing? It's because the planets are grading us, and they're doing their little check mark system of like, are we fucking worthy of that shit? So this is the most direct neutral shit, and it's ironic because Mercury says it himself that Uranus is his higher octave, but I'm saying it on a natural, casual level for the sake of just kind of being acquainted with what he's coded, right? What he coded, right? So within what he's coding, it's like based Mercury is the instrument to give us information, or to see, or to like regulate ourselves and our nervous system to respond to information, and seeing the new information perhaps on how we could feel better long term. And if we go against that, that sacred information, who knows how they're going to respond type of shit, right? So like this is the gift of Mercury. The gift of Mercury is seeing we have the capability and the gift to have a brain to fucking receive knowledge and to communicate and to learn, right? On what, however much we want to dock ourselves or not, you know, we have that ability to receive new information. And however you're individually stubborn, that's your own case. But nonetheless, Mercury's gift is some type of gift of we have the pursuit to investigate, right? So since we have the pursuit to investigate, we can't shit on that gift, because if we shit on that gift, then esoterically it could quote unquote rust, right? So why would you want to rust the a gift from the gods? And if you do, that's you, babe, type of shit. So it's like, what am I really trying to say here is Mercury is giving us the gift to investigate to see, is it a possibility that we could have a definite balance shift from the distorted old guard law system, and seeing the different percentage levels of still that has an influential effect, and seeing how long will it take to really transform that shit or not type of shit, you know? So within all of that shit, we can't shit on these gifts of the gods, but if we do, who knows what's going to happen, right? And obviously, you know, that nervous system could hear the thoughts of the people that want to cut me, right? I want to cut you type of shit. Like, you know, the gods see that shit. The gods see your surface level incarnation expression of like the malevolence, right? And you may have gotten away with that in a different life, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen this life type of shit. You know, everybody's watching you, quote unquote, right? Until their spirit is not, right? Until their spirit turns away and they're trying to plot and make their own agenda, right? So let me see. Let me just so let me just look at the human design real quick, and I'll conclude this video. Yeah, this was definitely a intuitive rant. Pluto in Aquarius, still cusping Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn. What was that? You know, what was like what? How long was Pluto in Capricorn? I think it was like what, somewhere. I'll just straight up Google it rather than just guess it. 2008 to 2024. Ooh. So Pluto was in Capricorn from 2008 until 2024. So 16 years. Pluto was in a whole sign. He took 16, and obviously, you know, it varies per, I'm sure, other orbits kind of contracting or expanding. Sometimes the planets sometimes the planets don't spend the same amount of time in one constellation zodiac sign as another, because I'm sure like other orbits are changing and expanding and contracting, where things could like kind of pivot and go and kind of shift on themselves, where the time could be shorter or lesser. But 16 years Pluto in Capricorn. So 16 times 12, what is that? 120, 32, 152, if I'm not mistaken. So 152 years it takes for Pluto to go through all the 12 signs. So 152 years, that's kind of like, you could say Pluto also has a unique relationship with the number 8 too, right? The shadow of 8, right? Original open source, right? So within that this 16-year transit brought profound, often intense transformations to societal structures, institutions, and personal power dynamics worldwide starting 2008. So 2008, that was just the start of it, right? And from 2008, you know, I guess just the starting of an esoteric government, you know, foundation There was a rehauling effect starting in 2008. So I'm going to conclude this video right here because obviously, like, next video I'll take notes on the transits, where the planets are at, how they're aspecting each other, and I'll take notes next time to be more professional with what's going on within the intricacies of like pretty much all the transits, right? And maybe I could just do it right now. Maybe I'll just look at the squares right now. Life force character energy, Libra, Sun and Libra, life force character energy. Our character, our individual inner child, our inner your and the Sun could also be the social structure too, bringing light on where we're at in just in our environment, right? Quote unquote social and family, right? So the Libra energy could just be on the surface level. The social structure itself, the Sun could be in one tangent, it could just be also your social structure. Leo could also be the social structure respectively too, right? Where's how does the individual pair with other individuals? The Sun being the individual inner child, the life force energy being supplied to the character energy, the Sun, right? The Sun, the life force energy, the Sun, the individual solar plexus, the Sun, the life force energy in the character, the Sun, right? So the Sun is in Libra, so that life force character energy is being institutionalized to cardinal air. So now our inner child is taking notes to how to see the balance and the non-balance of the Venus shit, the Saturn shit, and the Jupiter shit, right? And obviously that Venus shit, low key, low key, low key, that Venus shit is low key deep, right? The Lucifer shit. This is advanced professional intelligence, respectively, right? Because obviously that Venus shit, there's a lot there too, right? So all of the planets, they have their own wealth of all of this fucking shit, right? And we're catching up to their shit, right? So it's not necessarily that we have to compare with each other, but obviously the human mind, they like to compare, right? And if you want to do some professional comparing, these humans, they're not about that, dude. It's kind of shallow. Like on some professional esoteric shit, like there's some shallow shit. It's all good, but that Venus shit, the shadow Venus, it's rancid too. There's nasty. It's like if you really just get it, it's like it's connected to the whole craft, right? It's connected to the whole fucking craft, right? That Venus shit is like it's like Inanna, the Sumerian fucking goddess Inanna. Now, like all of the fucking religions are kind of, or all of the cultures, they're kind of the same, right? And the gods, they take different names throughout different cultures, right? So Venus, Anana, Lucifer, she's a Venus is a dangerous goddess, like, right? And everyone fucking like is very not good, not bad, is very private with that shit, right? They're very, it's just like Venus, she's like low key carrying it all, and she's kind of organizing that in like quote unquote the sexual education of things, right? Respectively, or this in a not good, not bad way. And from that, then that sexual education Olympics game experiment stems from the Venus shit, right? And from what we're doing, from just focusing on just the Venus shit and having different archetypal natures from other planets and their shadows, the Venus shit could obviously have an upside down tree inversion, right? The fucking the the shadow of the Kabbalah, the shadow of the tree of life, right? So obviously there could be some dark stuff in that Venus thing, not good, not bad, right? But it could be, right? So that Venus shit, it's like within this life, people are where they're at because they put all of their eggs in the basket of just the Venus shit in the Saturn age. So that's why people could be quote unquote envious, right? Because they're just focused on just the shadow Venus shit in the old age, right? And obviously the Venus shit could have a whole different context and outlet in a whole different, like somewhere else in the solar system aside from Earth, right? Because Venus isn't just necessarily subject to Earth, but she has a highlight in the Earth, right? So Sumerian Anana Venus, she's just organizing the craft of the ancestors, right? What is the craft of the ancestors? She was the heir, she was the goddess heir to all of the planets, and she was the like the main inheritor to her organizing and highlighting, the sexual education experiment of the humans on Earth. So this, like literally my shit is like the most graceful direct intelligence, and that's thanks to the other predecessors. So like literally on the overall like level, on the accumulative level, like like people are just like scared, like y'all it's just, at the end of the day it's just fear. It's just mortal fear. And I don't blame y'all, if I was if like I don't blame y'all if like if you I just don't blame y'all, I get it, I grew up through that intuitively. I processed that in high school and shit, like and college and shit, like I get it, like it's just fear. And it's just fear. That's all it is. Fear masked with a bunch of different shit. So I'll close it on what is Venus squaring right now? Venus and Virgo. Venus is squaring the moon. So there's an energetic, surge challenge. I call squares the surge challenge, right? Because they're trying to square out something in the solar system, and from that square pressure, that square is making some type of surge energetic angle effect where we're feeling a very nuanced square pressure for us to try to build upon the energy of the pressure of the square in the astrological skies. So Venus is in Virgo and the moon is in Sag. That's a square. Mutable earth, mutable fire, mutable Pisces, mutable water, Pisces. So there's a grand square right now. Uranus is in Gemini, mutable air. North node Saturn is in Pisces, mutable water. So there's a grand mutable square right now. So oh, this is juicy as fuck, guys. So there's a mutable square right now. There's a grand mutable cross. Uranus is in Gemini, Saturn is in Pisces, Moon is in Sagittarius, Venus is in Virgo. So within that grand square, we have the grand support to see the grand structure of how there's a energetic pressure build of the square energy to help us complete the square challenge of how to be mutable and adaptable within the elements, the grand square. Uranus in Gemini, Saturn in Pisces, Moon in Sagittarius, Venus in Virgo. And then the North Node and South Node are in Pisces and Virgo. So within that grand square, we have grand support to have some type of like to have some type of like life, life structure to see how the elements are changing in such a crazy, solar system effect, and how the elements are changing aren't necessarily just the planets, because the elements could be changing, you know, I guess through the byproduct energies of the planets. What are the byproduct energies of the planets? Whatever that planet's energy is, energies on energies on energies that are combining with other energies on other energies on other energies. That's what's making the transformation of elements, right? The mutable signs are the transformation of energies and elements, right? And Uranus being in Gemini, it's like we're like Uranus being eighth house, 10th house, and 11th house, most respectively. That eighth house, 10th house, and 11th house is in Gemini. So we're communicating that stuff within the grand mutable square. You have the best life ever. I'm gonna conclude this video right now. I'll be back as always. Whew, shit.